Danny Alexander and Eric Schumacher-Rasmussen are joining me on the show today. Hi, guys. How you doing?
All right. How are you?
We're doing great. We're doing
well,
great.
Thanks.
First of all, for those uninitiated, can I get one of you to tell my audience about Dave Marsh?
Eric, you want me to lead on that?
Yeah, go for it, Danny.
I mean, you know, the bio is that, you know, that Dave Marsh comes out of Detroit in 1969, helps found Cream magazine, right? He's a young writer, 19 years old, starts that, ends up being a central figure at Rolling Stone through most of the 70s, the records editor. He had his column American Grandstand that, you know, 13-year-old me started following, you know, reading in Rolling Stone, right? A little bit behind that. But then after a falling out with Rolling Stone and Jan Winter, he goes off and actually this overlaps, but he starts his own newsletter, Rock and Roll Confidential originally, later Rock and Rap Confidential, which is working to network artists and audience around different social issues and the issues that are facing artists and the issues that are facing the audience. Talking about, you know, how can we realize some of this vision that we know we have in rock and roll, you know, working together. And of course, he's just this great rock author, right? I mean, with what he did with the Springsteen book in '79, Born to Run, all but kind of redefined what a rock bio might be. And then he had, you know, this incredible Who book that came after that, and the Rolling Stone Record Guide in '78 or whatever was something that all of my friends used to carry around, and like we'd look for the pictures, look for the ones that were pictured because they were 5-star albums. We go buy them out of the used bins and that sort of thing. But he left such a mark, and you can almost look through his books and you can see that he almost everything he did was one of a kind and sort of redefined what the book might be, from writing a whole book about a single to a whole book about singles, right? You know, and a whole book about Christmas singles and all kinds of different things. His Michael Jackson book being about being trapped in your superstardom, and Glory Days, the sequel Springsteen book about finding your way out of traps. You know, I felt like he was in that era, but still is. He's a singular figure in terms of how he took advantage of that role of speaking for the audience at a time when we were kind of focused on the same culture and the same set of artists, and he took it very seriously, the idea of being the voice for the audience and exploring what that could be. You know, yeah. I don't know of anyone quite like him, as much as I love many of the other rock critics.
Land of Hope and Dreams. It's a 3-week online conference that looks spectacular. Give us some insight as to what people are going to hear and how they can get involved.
Well, this goes back to discussions we had, and by we, I mean Danny and I and people like Daniel Wolf and Craig Werner and Lauren Anke and Sue Martinez, Alexander Shashko, Charles Hughes, and Chris Buhalis. I want to shout out to everyone on the organizing committee who's worked on this. Going back a couple of years, Dave's 70th birthday was, and David Cantwell, yes. Some of us were talking independently, then we came together talking about what can we do to sort of celebrate Dave's 70th birthday and his 50th year in the biz, doing what he does publicly. And we started talking about a conference, and we were getting going on that when COVID hit. And so we had to set aside any plans to meet in person. We kept waiting and finally realized that doing it virtually might be the best way to do it anyway. And so we began working to put together a list of panels and conversations that really hit on all aspects of who Dave is and what he does. So obviously music journalism and music criticism is central to it, but we're going to have panels on music and activism, talking specifically about healthcare, about race and justice, about music in the media, about songwriting and storytelling. and want to give really a sense of the entire scope of who Dave is. And then, of course, we had to start working on lining up some people to talk. And I think we couldn't be happier with the lineup that we've got coming up. And we've also added some spotlight conversations. In addition to the panels, we've got one-to-one interviews, or one interviewer and two speakers with people like Bruce Springsteen, Nona Hendrix, John Landau, Little Steven, Jackson Brown. Danny's going to be talking to those two. And those are those are sort of the top line people. But again, Dave's never been about stars versus quote unquote the rest of us. And so if you look at who's speaking on the panels, it's musicians, it's activists, it's people who've been close to Dave and are great music critics of their own, even if they've never published a word officially. Best thing to do is visit landofhopeanddreams.co, not .com, and see what the program looks like. You can sign up for free. These are all going to be delivered via Zoom. You can sign up for all the panels with a single click, or individual panels. For the spotlight conversations, the ones with Bruce and Nona Hendrix and Little Steven and Jackson Brown, you have to sign up separately. But you can sign up there. You'll receive a link to the Zoom just before we go live, with a day or two before we go live. And then we'll also be streaming these to YouTube and archiving them there as well. So if you aren't able to watch and listen on the nights that we're doing this, or the afternoons that we're doing it, you'll have a chance to watch it later on.